The laughter in the banquet room bounced off the crystal chandeliers and hit me right in the chest. My older brother stood at the front of the room with a half-empty glass of expensive scotch in his hand. He pointed his glass straight at me across the crowded tables. He announced to 50 of our relatives that the family was just waiting for me to ask for a massive financial bailout. He called my e-commerce business a cute little arts and crafts hobby. Then he delivered the punchline, claiming that some branches of the family tree were simply genetically defective. The room erupted. My mother covered her mouth to hide a proud smile. My father chuckled loudly and raised his wine glass in complete agreement. I stared at the condensation dripping down the side of my water glass. My jaw locked tight. I placed my drink flat on the white linen tablecloth, pushed my chair back, and stood up. The laughter dialed down just a fraction. I met my brother's smug, flushed face. I held his gaze for 3 agonizing seconds, letting the silence hang in the air. I turned around, pushed through the heavy oak doors, and walked out into the crisp Charlotte evening. I gripped my car keys, the jagged metal pressing into my palm, grounding me in reality. Right then and there, I made a final, unbreakable decision. I was going to tear his perfect, shiny life down to the absolute foundation. My name is Brooke Bennett, and for 5 long years, I was the resident ghost of the Bennett family. Corey was the undisputed golden boy. He wore tailored Italian suits, leased a silver sports car, and introduced himself as a senior wealth manager at every single dinner party. He used complex terms like asset diversification, liquidity vectors, and generational wealth preservation to intimidate our aging parent, who barely understood modern banking. 2 years ago, he sat them down at their meticulously cleaned kitchen table, poured them each a cup of tea, and convinced them to sign over a complete power of attorney. He claimed it was a standard legal procedure designed to protect their estate from future tax burdens. They signed the documents without reading a single page. While Corey built his fragile kingdom of mirrors, I disappeared into the industrial district. He genuinely thought I was selling knitted scarves online. He had absolutely no idea that my logistics company was managing massive supply chains across 3 different continents. I spent my 20s in total isolation, negotiating wholesale contracts, vetting international suppliers, and building an empire in the dark. Every few months, Corey would leave a voicemail on my phone. His tone was always laced with that thick, suffocating condescension. He would tell me to get a real job, to stop embarrassing the family name, and to finally grow up. I listened to those messages while reviewing quarterly profits that completely dwarfed his entire annual salary. They broke my spirit when I was younger, making me believe I was the spare part, the extra puzzle piece that simply did not fit into their picture. But profound isolation is a powerful teacher. While Corey became a parasite, reliant on our parents' adoration and bank accounts to survive, I learned how to stand on my own 2 feet. I did not need a seat at their table. I had built my own. The concrete floors of my fulfillment center were my sanctuary. I remember the exact night my first major international contract cleared. It was 2:00 in the morning. I was eating a cold sandwich over a glowing spreadsheet, completely alone. There was no champagne toast. There was no father patting my back. No mother boasting to her country club friends. There was just the quiet hum of the warehouse ventilation system and the undeniable proof that I was capable of greatness. That silence used to ache deep in my bones. It used to feel like the ultimate rejection, but as the years passed, the silence hardened into heavy armor. I realized that keeping my success hidden was the greatest tactical advantage I could ever possess. Corey thrived on an audience. He needed constant applause to function properly. I only needed undeniable results. The catalyst for his destruction arrived exactly 3 weeks after the baby shower. Corey called an emergency family meeting. He paced frantically around our parents' living room, rubbing his temples, playing the dramatic role of the stress burden protector. He declared that their vacation property on Lake Norman required urgent structural repairs. The foundation was supposedly sinking into the muddy banks of the lake, threatening to collapse the entire structure. He insisted they needed to liquidate $85,000 from their primary trust fund immediately to cover the specialized contractors. My father looked deeply worried. My mother immediately reached for her purse and asked where she needed to sign the authorization forms. I sat on the edge of the sofa, watching Corey's hands tremble slightly. He kept adjusting his expensive silk tie, a nervous tic I had not witnessed since we were teenagers trying to hide a broken vase. Something felt entirely wrong. True wealth managers understand basic cash flow. They know perfectly well that moving $85,000 abruptly triggers massive banking alerts and requires layers of legal authorization. Furthermore, Corey was sweating. This was not the light perspiration of a concerned son. This was the cold, clammy sweat of a cornered animal. I kept my mouth shut and nodded slowly. I knew that demanding proof would only give him time to forge better documents. I left the house, went back to my own apartment, locked the heavy deadbolt, and opened my laptop. In my line of work, vetting international vendors and tracking complex supply chains is a daily routine. I do not need to hire expensive private investigators or execute magic computer hacks like they do in the movies. I just use open source intelligence. People leave digital footprints everywhere, especially when they are blinded by arrogance. It took me exactly 12 minutes on the North Carolina Secretary of State Public Business Registry to unravel his entire criminal scheme. I typed in the first company name, Apex Structural Solutions. The database populated a single digital document. It was a certificate of formation, filed barely 3 months ago. The registered agent address was a cheap residential apartment complex. I cross-referenced the name and my stomach dropped. The name belonged to a man who played golf with Corey every single Sunday. I checked the second company, listed on his paperwork as a luxury staging firm. Another golf buddy. I checked the third, a supposed commercial plumbing contractor. It was registered directly to Corey's former college roommate. There were no structural repairs happening at the lake. There was no sinking foundation. Corey was systematically laundering our parents' retirement fund through his friends' fake businesses to float his own collapsing lifestyle. But why now? Why the sudden desperate rush for exactly $85,000? I dug much deeper into the public financial regulatory databases. I ran his credentials through the standard broker verification systems. The screen loaded slowly, and the final puzzle piece locked into place. Corey's prestigious brokerage firm had placed him on unpaid administrative leave 2 weeks prior for highly suspicious client trading activity. He was completely broke. I pulled the public property tax records for his luxurious South Park condominium. He was exactly 48 hours away from an irreversible mortgage default. He was not a master criminal playing a long game. He was a drowning man, desperately trying to steal from his own elderly parents to save his fragile ego from public humiliation. The perfect trap presented itself a week later, Our parents were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary with a massive catered dinner at the South Park Country Club. Corey organized the entire event himself, using it as a grand stage to showcase his supposed wealth to the Charlotte elite. Because he still viewed me as the useless sister with a craft hobby, he carelessly dumped the tedious chore of managing the family photo slideshow onto me. I arrived at the country club early. The grand ballroom smelled like roasted garlic, polished mahogany wood, an expensive floral perfume. Crystal wine glasses sparkled brightly under the dim. Ambient lighting reflecting the immense wealth of the room. I walked straight to the audiovisual booth at the back of the room. I handed the venue's technician a meticulously organized data drive. I had spent 3 sleepless nights editing the presentation file. I buried the explosive limited liability company registrations, the forged invoices, and the condo foreclosure notices at the very end of a genuinely sweet 10-minute family photo montage. Corey, being an absolute control freak, demanded to review the presentation before the guests sat down. He stood by the projection booth, a glass of expensive red wine in his hand, and watched the first 2 minutes. He saw the childhood beach trip, the holiday dinners, and the smiling faces. He let out a dismissive scoff, got bored, and smugly told the technician it was perfectly fine to play. He never bothered to check the end of the timeline. Dinner was served. The waitstaff moved seamlessly between the circular tables, pouring champagne and clearing heavy ceramic plates. The atmosphere was thick with forced laughter and corporate networking. Corey stood up, tapped a silver spoon against his crystal glass, and took the microphone. He launched into a boastful, sickeningly sweet speech about family legacy, profound responsibility, and his vital role as the financial protector of the Bennett name. The technician pressed play on the video. Behind Corey, the massive projection screen shifted. The childhood photos faded away entirely. Suddenly, the state registry documents appeared, massive and undeniable, side by side with Corey's own social media post showing him drinking beers with the fake contractors. I sat perfectly still, waiting for the collapse. But this is where the story took a sharp turn. Corey did not freeze in shame. He snapped into pure, vicious survival mode. He spun around, saw the screen, and violently yanked the thick projector cable directly out of the wall socket. The screen went pitch black. The ballroom fell into a dead, suffocating silence. This is completely unbelievable. Corey shouted, his voice echoing over the terrified tables. He pointed a trembling finger directly at me. Brooke has completely lost her mind. She is forging fake documents because she is incredibly jealous of my success. She has been having a severe mental breakdown for months. He weaponized his professional title flawlessly. He rushed over to our parents, wrapping his arms protectively around our weeping mother. He spoke in a low, soothing, authoritative voice, assuring the surrounding guests that I was just terribly sick, that I needed immediate psychiatric help, and that he would handle the family embarrassment privately. My father looked at me with absolute, unfiltered disgust. The country club manager politely asked me to leave the premises. I stood up, smoothed out my dress, and walked out of the dining room with my head held high. Corey smirked at me over our mother's shoulder. He truly thought he had won the war. He thought he had survived the exposure. He had absolutely no idea I was counting on him reacting exactly like that. 2 agonizing weeks passed. The $85,000 bank transfer had been permanently blocked because the very morning after the country club disaster, I had quietly driven to my parents' house while Corey was at the golf course. I bypassed the emotional arguments entirely. I simply set the raw bank routing numbers on their kitchen table. I showed them the direct, irrefutable connection between Corey's signature and the empty holding account. The heavy wall of denial finally broke. With a licensed notary present in their living room, they legally revoked Corey's power of attorney. Corey did not know this had happened. He was completely out of time, drowning in aggressive debt and dangerously desperate. On a Tuesday morning, he attempted his final fatal move. He walked into the downtown branch of his parents' primary bank. His plan was to quietly take out a $500,000 home equity line of credit on our parents' primary residence, take the cash, and flee the state. He strode into the bank manager's office wearing his best custom-tailored suit, projecting absolute confidence. He flashed his signature charismatic smile at the receptionist and sat down across from Julia, the branch manager. He handed her the massive stack of loan applications, leaning heavily on his revoked power of attorney to bypass the standard parental verification phone calls. By signing that specific document under those specific pretenses in a federally insured institution, he crossed the legal line from a messy family dispute into textbook felony bank fraud and forgery. Julia was a seasoned professional I had vetted thoroughly weeks in advance. She calmly took the signed document. She did not smile. She did not offer him a complimentary pen or ask about his golf handicap. She slid the papers into a thick manila folder, placed her hands flat on the mahogany desk, and nodded toward the shadowed corner of her office. Corey turned his head, his charismatic smile freezing instantly in place. 2 plainclothes Charlotte police detectives wearing standard windbreakers and stern expressions had been sitting quietly in the leather chairs the entire time, completely obscured by the angle of the heavy door. Corey's face drained of all color. The arrogant, flushed pink of his cheeks vanished, replaced by a sickly, chalky white. Sweat instantly beaded heavily on his forehead. Corey Bennett, the older detective said, standing up and pulling out his badge, "You are under arrest for felony wire fraud, forgery, and elder exploitation. This is a massive mistake." Corey's voice cracked into a high pitch. His hands shook violently as the detective pulled his arms roughly behind his back. The metallic click of the handcuffs echoed sharply against the glass walls of the quiet office. "I am a licensed professional. I am a senior wealth manager. You cannot do this to my career." Julia looked at him with eyes like crushed ice. "You are not a wealth manager, Mr. Bennett," she said coldly. "Your broker license was fully suspended this morning. The whistleblower report your sister filed with the Securities and Exchange Commission was incredibly thorough." Corey stopped struggling immediately. His knees buckled slightly, nearly taking the detective down with him. The profound realization hit him like a physical blow to the chest. He was not just losing the stolen money. He was permanently barred from the financial industry forever. The fake empire was entirely gone. The aftermath was swift, strictly legal, and absolutely merciless. Corey was booked into the county jail, trading his tailored Italian suits for an oversized orange jumpsuit. He spent his first night screaming empty threats through the cold iron bars, demanding to speak to the mayor. But nobody was listening anymore. I made certain there were 0 loose ends left to untangle. The detectives visited Corey's golf buddies the very next morning, terrified of facing federal conspiracy charges and losing their own country club statuses. His friends flipped on him immediately. They cut immunity deals within hours, eagerly handing over every single financial record, email, and text message that permanently sealed Corey's prison sentence. Our parents were finally stripped of their comfortable delusion. The golden boy was gone, replaced by the harsh reality of a desperate thief who had nearly left them homeless in their twilight years. 3 days later, my phone started ringing endlessly. It was my mother. She left a desperate, tearful voicemail begging me to come over to the house. She pleaded with me to help them fix the broken family, to hire an expensive defense lawyer for Corey, to somehow make things right again. I sat quietly in my office at the fulfillment center. I listened to the voicemail from start to finish. I heard the deep panic in her voice. I heard the ingrained expectation that I would drop my entire life to clean up the catastrophic mess they had allowed Corey to make. Anger and sadness were completely absent. A profound, hollow silence took their place. I deleted the voicemail. I opened my phone settings, selected both of my parents' phone numbers, and pressed block. I did not need to fix a family that had watched me drown for years. The massive warehouse was humming beautifully with activity. Forklifts beeped rhythmically in the distance. Conveyor belts moved heavy boxes filled with products I had personally sourced, negotiated, and sold. This was my reality. This was the world I had built with my own 2 hands. Piece by piece, late into the dark night. It was a world built on solid foundations, not on vicious lies and stolen funds. I looked at my logistics manager, who gave me a quick, respectful nod as she handed me a shipping clipboard. Respect. It was something I had never once felt in my childhood home, but it was the primary currency of my current life. I signed the manifest, handed it back, and smiled genuinely. The ghost of the Bennett family was completely dead. The architect of my own life was finally free to breathe. The justice was not an abstract concept, it was exact, mathematical, and unforgiving. 6 months later, I sat quietly in the back row of the county courtroom and watched the stern judge sentence Corey to 7 years in state prison, with eligibility for parole only after 5 full years served. The court also ordered full financial restitution of the funds he had previously siphoned. The social fallout extended far beyond the courtroom walls. Corey's name was permanently scrubbed from the country club registry. His former colleagues literally crossed the busy street when they saw my parents walking toward them. He lost his reputation, his freedom, and his entire identity. A year into his prison sentence, I received a thick envelope. It arrived at my warehouse, forwarded from an old residential address. The frantic handwriting was unmistakable. Corey, he wrote 6 pages about how he had found spiritual clarity, how he was still my older brother, and how he had done everything purely for the family's legacy. It was the ultimate hollow echo. It was the final, pathetic manipulation attempt of a cornered narcissist trying desperately to pull me back into his chaotic orbit. I bypassed anger entirely. I read the very first paragraph, calmly folded the heavy paper in half, dropped it directly into the industrial paper shredder beside my desk, and listened to the machine turn his words into meaningless dust. I never sent a reply. My life now is remarkably peaceful. I spend my weekends with my chosen family. I am surrounded by loyal friends who celebrate my victories, a loving partner who respects my fierce independence, and brilliant mentors who challenge me to grow. We host long dinners where the loud laughter is genuine and the love is never, ever conditional. There are no exhausting power struggles. There are no veiled insults passed off as clever jokes. When someone asks how my business is doing, they actually want to hear the answer. They listen intently. They celebrate the late nights and the hard-won victories. The air in my home is incredibly light. It is a stark, beautiful contrast to the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of the Bennett house. Healing is not just about removing the toxic elements from your environment. It is about actively filling that empty space with good people who remind you daily that you are worthy of respect. It takes time to recalibrate your nervous system, to stop expecting a hidden agenda behind every simple compliment. But true peace is completely possible. If you are watching this and you recognize that heavy, suffocating air in your own life, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Corey's relentless cruelty was never actually about my flaws. It was the narcissistic projection trap in action. He was a man rotting from the inside out, drowning in massive debt and professional incompetence. He mocked my business and called me defective publicly because he desperately needed a convenient scapegoat to carry his own profound shame. Toxic people will always try to project their massive failures onto you. They will build a highly profitable lie, and the rest of the family will often protect that lie fiercely because it is infinitely easier than facing the uncomfortable, ugly truth. It is absolutely crucial to understand the vital role of the enablers in these toxic family dynamics. My parents were not the brilliant architects of the fraud, but they were the solid foundation that allowed it to stand for so long. They consistently chose the comfortable illusion of the successful golden boy over the incredibly difficult reality of his incompetence. When a family operates on a toxic hierarchy of extreme favoritism, the absolute truth becomes an enemy. They did not want to see my hard-earned success because acknowledging my immense value would mean acknowledging their own massive failure in how they treated me over the decades. This is the hardest pill to swallow when you are the designated outcast. The parents who are supposed to protect you fiercely will often sacrifice you completely just to maintain the fragile status quo. They will label you as the ultimate problem because it is easier to violently exile the truth teller than it is to carefully dismantle the lie. Surviving that brutal dynamic requires much more than just quiet endurance. It requires a fundamental, permanent shift in how you view the entire world. I walked away from that wreckage with 3 absolute life rules, forged in the hot fire of that betrayal. Rule number 1, blood does not make you family. Mutual respect does. Sharing a last name or a specific genetic code is nothing more than a biological accident of birth. It is definitely not a lifelong binding contract that obligates you to endure chronic abuse. Never sit quietly at a table where you are served emotional poison and expected to say thank you politely. You are completely allowed to stand up, push your chair back, and walk away forever. Rule number 2, silence is a brilliant strategy, not a sign of weakness. When you are constantly surrounded by arrogant people who belittle you, your natural human instinct is to yell, to argue endlessly, to prove them wrong. Do not waste a single drop of your energy. When you are the chosen scapegoat, every valid word you say will be twisted maliciously to fit their established narrative. If you are angry, they will say you are crazy. If you defend yourself, they will say you are defensive. So you must absolutely stop giving them ammunition. Let them speak loudly into the void. Use that profound silence to focus entirely on your own personal growth. Educate yourself fiercely. Save your money secretly. Build your professional network quietly. While the loudest people in the room are busy bragging and inflating their fragile egos, the quiet ones are building massive leverage. Let them underestimate you. Let them truly think you are weak and incapable. Your massive success, built patiently in the dark, will be the ultimate weapon when the perfect time comes to strike. Rule number 3, real. Effective boundaries require severe consequences, not just polite conversation. You cannot ever reason with a person who is deeply committed to misunderstanding you. You cannot explain basic human empathy to a clinical narcissist. When they cross the line, you do not argue. You execute a swift consequence. You remove your physical presence. You remove your financial resources, or you let the harsh legal system handle their blinding arrogance. A tearful apology without changed behavior is just another form of emotional manipulation. You must learn quickly to recognize the massive difference between genuine remorse and the sheer panic of getting caught. Corey was never genuinely sorry for what he did to our parents or to me. He was only sorry that his perfect, shiny facade was permanently destroyed. Boundaries are not gentle requests you make of other people. Boundaries are the concrete actions you take to protect yourself when other people refuse to respect your requests. Enforce them without a single moment of hesitation. I look back constantly at the young girl who walked out of that baby shower, clutching her car keys, feeling like an absolute outcast in her own family. I truly wish I could go back and tell her that the searing pain was just the necessary price of admission to a much better, brighter life. I ask you this today: who in your life is using the sacred title of family as a convenient shield for their disrespect? Who is loudly demanding your unwavering loyalty while actively working against your personal peace? And most importantly, what exactly are you going to do about it today? Do not wait for them to magically change. Build your own sturdy table. Protect your peace fiercely, and never, ever apologize for taking your power back. Please share this video with someone who desperately needs to hear it today. And subscribe to the channel for more stories of survival, strategy, and absolute strength. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there wondering, why on earth did Brooke stay silent for 5 long years? Why did she let Corey parade around in his tailored suits and lease his sports car using her parents' money without saying a single word? It is incredibly easy to judge from the outside, but Brooke was not stupid, and she was not weak. She was trapped in something psychologists call the slot machine effect, also known as intermittent reinforcement. When you grow up in a highly toxic family dynamic, you do not get punished 100% of the time. Every now and then, you get a tiny crumb of hope, a polite smile at a baby shower. Arare, backhanded compliment from a parent. It acts exactly like a massive payout at a casino. It keeps you pulling the lever, hoping that this time you will finally win their genuine love and respect. Brooke endured the silence because human beings are deeply wired to stay addicted to the possibility of that payout. But when Brooke finally woke up, she executed a masterclass in financial self-defense. Let's break down exactly how she did it so you can protect yourself. First, she used what I call the audit strategy. Scammers absolutely hate details. When Corey demanded $85,000 for a supposed emergency foundation repair, Brooke did not scream, cry, or argue. Emotional reactions are exactly what narcissists want because anger is distracting. Instead, she went straight to the public business registry. She checked the limited liability company filings. Always verify the vendor. A quick public records search is completely free, and it is the ultimate street smart weapon against a financial predator. Second, she focused heavily on building the case. She did not confront Corey the second she found those fake invoices. Confronting a scammer prematurely just gives them time to destroy the evidence or spin a new lie. Instead, she gathered the receipt, matched his social media posts to the corporate filings, and built a bulletproof paper trail in the dark. Finally, she executed the ultimate buyout. Brooke knew she could not just tell her parents Corey was a thief. They would never believe her. She had to show them the exact bank routing numbers to break their long-held delusion, allowing them to quietly revoke his power of attorney with a licensed notary. By letting Corey walk into that bank and confidently sign a $500,000 loan application under false pretenses, she allowed him to hand himself over to the police for felony bank fraud. She used the strict legal system to permanently buy out her family's freedom from his manipulation. Here is the brutal truth you need to take away from Brooke's story. Financial predators rely heavily on your emotional reactions and your misplaced loyalty. Your self-worth is not tied to the people who consistently underestimate you. It is built in the dark, through your own independence and your own fiercely protected boundaries. If someone is using the sacred title of family to drain you financially or emotionally, it is time to cut the cord. Have you ever had to use the audit strategy to catch someone in a lie? Drop your story in the comments below. We read every single one. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the psychology of survival and success. Stay smart. Protect your peace. And I will see you in the next video.